if your home relationships aren't good, it is going to poison the well in your business.
Everything is possible, just hustle, just hustle.
The $1 Million Hustle Podcast, where we keep it real, unstated entrepreneurship wisdom. Learn to think like a millionaire and hustle like you're broke. Here's your host, Billy the Kid, aka Billionaire.
Everything is possible, just hustle, just hustle. Everything is possible, just hustle.
Welcome to the $1 Million Hustle Podcast, baby, where you're gonna learn to think like a millionaire and hustle like you're broke. It is your boy, Billy the Kid, aka BDK, aka Billionaire in this mug, and super excited. I just got done interviewing Cody, and I'm just gonna say it out flat because everything we talked about today was amazing. Those of you who don't know, he is the one who took over the we'll call it beer industry in Nebraska. And when you hear his story, you guys are gonna hear how much work and you're gonna learn a lot in this episode. So I cannot wait. And also imagination, which is huge. Storytelling thing. I related a lot to his story because me being an artist with music and you got to have imagination for the stuff that we do. Even this podcast alone, that's why I love doing these things, writing books and all that, because it takes a lot of imagination. So I definitely related. I can't wait to dig in. Overall, guys, I'm just blessed, super excited. This show actually should be coming out at the beginning of 2023, I believe. So, and if not, late 22. Just super excited to get so much wisdom out there for you guys to learn from people like Cody today. So I don't even know what episode, but that's the nice thing is we're just knocking them out and throwing them out there. So those of you who are listening, if it is at the beginning of the year or even towards the end of the year, it is important for you to focus on these goals. And by now, I should have announced I'm looking at doing a mastermind, like a 2-3 day mastermind. And it's funny because even talking to Cody today, I think we might have found the spot to do it. And you guys will hear a little more about it in the episode. So otherwise, by now, by the time this episode airs, I am looking at the next group of one-on-ones that are interested in doing the one-on-ones with me. So if you're interested in doing one-on-one coaching with me, and we could talk about your real estate, business, entrepreneurship, mindset, life coaching, just success overall. If you want to write a book, for example, if you want to put yourself out there, wherever area that you're needing help with, I am blessed to say that I'm able to help with the experience that I've had with my music, with real estate, owning businesses. So, if you haven't yet, go check out some of the testimonials that I've put out there from some of the guys. Shout out to everybody that is also in the mastermind even now. So if you're not ready to do one-on-one coaching, send me an email if you're interested in doing the mastermind. But info at Billy the Kid if you're info at BillyTheKid.com if you're interested in doing any of those. Otherwise, if anybody looking for some money lending, we are providing that service. It has to be for real estate. So if you're interested, if you have a deal in your hand and you don't have enough funds, get at me so that way we can figure it out and get your lending needs going. Construction, New Era Construction, LLC.net. And, it's funny, I went with .net because there's NE on there for Nebraska. And also, those of you who don't know, the reason why, pretty much I go with New Era is because I am a Husker boy. I live in Nebraska, so New Era, NE. NE stands for Nebraska. So thought I'd throw that out there because I don't think I've explained that fully. So anyways, but otherwise, guys, make sure you guys go check out my music. It's out on Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube for all my music and for podcasts and everything else I got going on. And if you haven't yet, The Power of Being Uncomfortable, man, go grab yourself a copy. I got so many other things coming up here soon too. I'm writing books and everything else, so stay tuned for all that. But without further ado, man, I am super excited to bring you Cody, who started KINKAIDER. And those of you who don't know, that is my favorite brewery. I put on a lot of people with KINKAIDER. All my friends, actually, they all know that that's my spot. And when they first came into town, I was there. And it's amazing to see what Cody has done since. So here is his story. Cody from KINKAIDER. Vámonos. Welcome to the $1 Million Hustle podcast, baby. And today I'm super excited. I got a guinea pig in here.
I'll take it.
Cody, how you doing,
Yeah,
man?
good, man. How are you?
Good. It's funny because you're right in front of me.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is the first time I'm doing kind of like
the multi-angle. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how you been, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. Love watching what you do. Love following you on socials and seeing what you got going on. It's always fun to watch that. I mean, from afar, I'm a fan, dude.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. And I know we've had a couple beers and we've touched on a lot of great subjects that hopefully we can get it all in. It's only an hour show, but
sure. Yeah. I always enjoy having beers with you, man, and just talking. I mean, even that first time that we connected, it's like I don't know, man. I felt like we went a little deeper on that first conversation and that most people do, so
yeah,
it's fun to connect with a guy like you that's shaking and moving and hearing what you got going on.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm excited. Let's dive in.
Okay.
So I would like to hear your story. Where are you from and where did you grow up?
Right. Yeah. So I am a Western Nebraska kid. A lot of people think North Platte or Broken Bow is Western Nebraska. It's absolutely not. Where I was in the Panhandle of Nebraska, fourth generation from Bayard, Nebraska, a little town around 1,100 people growing up. My dad, my grandpa, a lot of people. My mom was all out of that area. We loved it, man. It was a good way to grow up. One house we had in town, one out in the country. Kind of got to do what we wanted to do when we were in this country house, and me and my brothers, and we had buddies around, and we rode 4-wheelers and horses, and that was a good childhood, man. Western Nebraska was really, really good to my family. I haven't been back there. Actually, I'm going to go this weekend. We have a few events there that me and my wife are going to go hit up, but I haven't been to the Panhandle, but it always does have a pretty, it's a soft spot for me. Like I love that I grew up there. I felt like I learned how to work there. I felt like I have some relationships that are still going into my adult life, even though I don't make it back there a lot. There is a connection back to that area that I'll always have. My dad grew up on a farm underneath Chimney Rock. So Chimney Rock is on the back of the Nebraska quarter, if you don't know, and it was a beacon for the pioneers as they came through heading to California. And so we grew up around that. It's so funny because people come from all over the country and even the world to see that, but we kind of grew up around it. It's like, oh, whatever, it's right there, but it's a beautiful part of the state. I didn't realize until I moved east how much the two ends of the state look. They call that Wyobraska out there in the Panhandle because it does look a little bit more like Wyoming than it even does the majority of Nebraska. Good place to grow up, man. A lot of my morals, a lot of my values come from growing up there, and I'll always be proud of that.
Man, that's awesome, man. And I know it shows, like your pride shows for Nebraska, man. It's something that I've always noticed in you. If we could move on to how was it growing up with your parents? Was the entrepreneurial seed there already, or?
I would like to think it is. My dad was a butcher by trade. He started in the packing plants when he was a teenager, and he found out pretty quickly that grocery store butchering was a little less backbreaking than the packing plants, and so he moved into that. when me and my brothers were fairly young, and Dad did the grocery store thing for years. He worked for several guys, always took a ton of pride in his job. Really made a name for himself in Western Nebraska as being the best meat. People would maybe do all their shopping at all these other places, and then they'd come to Baird and buy meat from my dad. Always super proud of him. He worked really hard. Mom, actually, they felt like it was very important for Mom to stay home with the four of us boys when we were younger. As we got a little older, Mom ventured out, but I remember our grocery budget. I remember Dad making $8 an hour and getting a raise to $10 an hour. And I was like, oh baby, we made it. You know what I mean? Getting into double digits. But I could not be more proud of him. I've since, moved him here to Lincoln. They're doing well. Love my dad and mom. They are the biggest influences in my life, and good friends with them. Spend time with them 3-4 times a week. They're around all the time, he definitely, Mom and Dad are the reason that, like it or not, the way I am today. So
I have a question for you, because I know the times we talked, you're definitely proud of the way your family, the way you were brought up, and the way they raised you. What is one thing that comes to your head right away that you've learned from each parent?
Yeah. So, Dad, definitely work ethic. That's been a big one. Dad was always, just telling a quick story. My brother, Jason, had got his kind of first job working with Dad at the grocery store. He's my older brother, and he had been working and moving meat and stocking and doing all the things that you do in a butcher shop, wrapping or whatever. And he kind of they had a natural break in the work, and Jason leaned up against the wall and kind of was taking a little break, and Dad looks at him and says, "What are you doing?" And Jason says, "Well, what do you mean?" And Dad said, you're on another man's time right now. Like, it's not break time. Like, let's keep working." And there was nobody around. Nobody was watching. Dad wasn't doing it as a show, but it's something that stuck with me, that, man, when you take another man's money and you take a job from him or her, it's my dad always really slammed the importance of what that means, and given, trading a hard day's work for the paycheck, and dad really slammed that into our heads, and working for something bigger than just, when the boss is around, or, to show how hard you're working. It wasn't about that. Dad always did things 100%. And I know that about my dad. That's a big one for me. Mom, she actually gave us not to be divisive, but she wants us to question everything. Don't just take things at face value. Don't just take, maybe even don't take people's word for it all the time, right? Like, she had this kind of healthy distrust of authority without being disrespectful. You know what I mean? So she always questioned things. She always questioned just like the motives and what does that mean for us going forward. I think just having that influence of Mom had great friends. She had a lot of people she trusted. They had their church family, and it was something, though, that Mom really, you kind of had to prove yourself to Mom. And I always appreciated that about her, that she didn't just do what she was told, right? Like, she always questioned, why am I doing this? Okay, if there's a good reason, I'm going to comply. But she definitely taught us that growing up, for sure.
I love that. And I can definitely relate, because I'm big on like explaining to even my kids too, like, hey, there's Google nowadays, like question everything. Like, like literally, why are you asking me about something you could have Googled? And especially nowadays, right? So I love that, because I Google everything. And then you mentioned the thing with your dad, like that's awesome with money. It reminds me, like, money isn't everything, but it ranks up there with oxygen, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's very important. So
Yeah.
I love that he taught you that from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I guess for those of you who are watching, they might be wondering, who is this guy?
Yeah, who the heck?
But most of them
I don't
know you. And if you could explain a little bit of where you're at right now,
Yeah.
what do you do?
Yeah.
What the shirt that you're wearing?
It's always hard to, I want to answer the question truthfully. I don't want to ever come off as boastful, because it really, sometimes when you say, and I mean, you as well, you say all the things that you got rolling. Some people look at it like, oh man, like what's this dude bragging about or whatever. But no, man, we've been fortunate enough to put together an amazing ownership team that has put our we have a few different things that we're working on, but we have these teams that we're building. I mean, we got 120 people on the payroll now, something that I take very seriously and I'm super proud of. So just to kind of back up a little bit, we started my start in business was my family actually bought into a grocery store in 2005. That was in McCook, Nebraska. Kind of pooled our resources, pooled our our experience in the grocery business. I had been working grocery. All three of my brothers had been doing that, and obviously Dad's been a butcher forever. And we went to McCook, Nebraska, all moved into one house and started running this grocery store. Started hiring employees slowly, and kind of made a really good name for ourselves in McCook, Nebraska. We know a lot of folks there, and McCook was really, really good for us. Fast forward to 2009, I bought one of my brothers out of the business. So then it was me and another brother and my dad. Fast forward to that, I bought another brother out, and at that point, we had grown the thing to 4 grocery stores. If you know about the grocery store business, it's hard. The margins are slim. You are really on an independent level. You're buying yourself a job more than an investment. And it took me a while to figure that out, because people will see the amount of money that you're going through in the grocery store. But man, if you take $1, you're handing out 99 cents. That's a win. I mean, 1% margins in the grocery store is a win. So it's a total volume game, which any error in that, you don't make any money that year. So we did that for a long time. I am a firm believer in every kid, especially, you need to either work in the restaurant business or grocery business, because I think it teaches you a ton about people. It teaches you to learn how to talk with tough personalities and people that maybe, all different walks of life. Gives you a lot of exposure very, very quickly on how to handle people and how to handle yourself around a vast variety of people. So that's how I started my career. In 2010, we bought our second store in Broken Bow. So rewind back to that. I met Dan Hodges, Barry Fox, and Nate Bell, my 3 partners that I have now. They invited me to a homebrew club in the back of an insurance office in downtown Broken Bow. I was new to town. I was like, I'll come. I'm not a home brewer, but I brought in some craft beer from the grocery store that I thought would be fun to share. And I went to a few of these share sessions with these guys. And Danny would bring his home brews, and his beers were consistently good, just good, solid beers. Me and Dan connected fairly quickly. He's actually the oldest in our group, and I'm the youngest, but we became fast friends, and he's an authentic dude, and I could talk about Dan forever. I love that guy so much. But
which he actually has his own beer, right?
Dan the Wiser. Yeah, Dan the Wiser Kolsch. So yeah, Dan, I would say, is, I don't know. We've kind of told Dan's story, and because I think authenticity matters, Dan rose to the top of this like kind of group. Brewers are usually quiet, unassuming guys. You may not ever even know their face or their name. You'll know the brewery they brew for or whatever. But I really wanted to get Dan out in front of people, and it pushed him a little bit. I mean, Dan turned a wrench his entire life in Thedford, Nebraska, never was an employee, never really had an employee, just kind of worked for himself. he had retired in 2013. I met him then, and I called him. I said, Danny, let's start a brewery in Broken Bow. And he didn't even get off the first phone call with me. He goes, I'm in. So then Barry and actually Nate came on next. We were kind of looking broke. If you don't know anything about Broken Bow, it's a very thriving little community. And there's actually not a ton of open real estate there, which is crazy because a lot of these small towns, everything's buttoned up and, you know, you got your downtown areas. I mean, our downtown square, it looks like something off of a Hallmark movie or something. Every business is full. So there's really not a ton. So then Barry came in and said, hey, I heard you guys are looking at opening a brewery. Barry had 4-acre farm. Well, actually it's larger than that, but he had 4 acres that he had parceled off. He said, hey, I'll help build buildings here. I'll do whatever. I would love to put the brewery out here, but I want to be a partner. Barry had just came off of another career, and he was just trying to invest in himself and invest in small business that he felt like he could grow. Barry getting involved was a game changer, and I didn't even realize it at the time. Barry brought a ton of expertise, financial expertise to the group that we didn't even know we were lacking at the time. So we have these 4 guys that have had a certain level of success outside of the brewery, and we came together for our love of craft beer, and we're like, okay, let's start a brewery. And people are like, why did you start a brewery in Broken Bow? And I said, that's where we lived, right? So we just started it where we live, and it's grown. So KINKAIDER Brewing started in 2014. We knew that there was going to be a wave of craft breweries opening in the years to come. And so that 2014 was a date we really shot hard for. So in June of 2014, we had the 4 of us. We each threw in a little bit of money. Not much. I actually had to borrow my share to
Nice.
get there. We each threw in a little bit of money. I didn't tell the boys that until years later, but we got started and we opened.
So they never even knew until now.
right.
Listening now.
I think we've had those conversations since then. But so we opened the day after Christmas in 2014. We could have pushed it till January. But we didn't want to. We wanted that established in 2014 date. So it's just grow. Broken Bow location was 2,500 square feet to start. We just added on again. We're up to 20,000 square feet on that site. So we've got our restaurant, our bar. We just doubled the size of our dining room, doubled the size of our kitchen. Put a guest house out there so that you can actually come out.
Yeah, which, you know, I'm slacking on that, man, because we talked about it last time. It's something I want to do. How many people can sleep in there?
Yeah, so it's got 4 queen size beds. So we advertise as 8, but you'd have to know each other pretty good. But honestly, if 4 couples knew each other and felt somewhat, it's a 1,600 square foot apartment. So it's not small. It's not like you're jammed into, it's got 2 separate bedrooms and then one of those Murphy beds that folds out of the bookshelf. And then actually a pretty nice couch bed that rolls out. So there's 4 queen size beds. We rent that thing all the time, dude. Jenny will send out on our group text, hey, here's the rentals for this month. And shoot, it seems like there's more days rented than there's not, for sure. So we didn't realize how much that would add to the experience out there. But anyway, outdoor
that's
stage,
awesome, man.
yeah.
And real quick, I just want to
go for it.
Out of the many things that like the great things you're doing, it's so cool to see that you kept it real, we'll say, to where you're from and where you come from. I think it's very important in your story. And then from there, you just branched off everywhere else.
Yeah, it is. You know, you got to have a home. You got to have a home crowd before you go on tour, right? And I think it's something that we really wanted to make sure that the folks in Broken Bow, man, listen, when we got to Broken Bow and we started talking about opening a craft beer place out in the country, a mile north of a town of 3,500 people that usually just drinks Busch Light. People thought we were a little crazy, bro. Like, people thought we were a little crazy. And you know what? Looking back, it probably was a little crazy, but I don't know, man. Like, our group, I felt so confident in our group early that I told my kids the other day, man, it's like there was never a time where I thought we would fail. Like I didn't even real like I knew there was a chance, and like if I just never focused on what ifs, right? I just was I think we were just dumb enough to push it hard, and it worked, right? And so
and Cody, okay, if you could dig a little bit deep on that, because that's huge right there. There was never a time that you doubted that it would work, right? And I kind of just switched it around. It's the same. Right. How important is that? Because I believe that where I'm at, with the stuff that I'm doing, my music and real estate, construction, everything that I do, I feel like it's so true. You literally have to look crazy in front of people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I will say the people, and I don't hold grudges. I really don't. And this is not even a grudge thing, but I do remember what people say, right? I will always remember.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of the people that were like, you guys are crazy, have since tried to invest, right? And so that's always, there's some, some enjoyment or some joy that you get out of that. And it is cool. But I will say this, Broken Bow knew nothing of what we were doing. They had most of them had not, craft beer wasn't even a thing, right? And they go, these guys are trying to do something cool for our town. And we did a crowdfunding campaign. This was like when Kickstarter was kind of just, I don't know. I know Kickstarter's been around for a while, but like, we thought, okay, should we use a platform like, nah, we don't really need that. This is our local. So I made a hotel card, like when you go into the hotel and it says, hey, you can go skydiving or you can go, airboating or whatever. I basically made a hotel card. It was like a little thin card that I could just put in people's hands. And it was called the Pioneer Club is what I called it.
Nice.
And I had levels from $100 up to $10,000 on this is what the $100 person would get. This is what the $500 person would get. And I started floating that thing around and people just started throwing money at us. It was awesome, man. I mean, we actually raised about 50 grand in cash and trade. And so I knew right then, I mean, and the 50 grand helped, don't get me wrong, just getting started. But it really, to me, it was, these folks are willing to invest in us sight unseen. They have no idea what we're doing. They don't know what it's going to add to the community. They're just hopeful that we're going to put something cool together. And they threw this out there. We need to still take care of those folks. Once a year, we do a party that's free food, free booze, free entertainment. And we talk about how everybody that jumped on that with us, man, they still hold a super dear place in my heart. And I have them on a poster at every location too. And people are like, what is this? And I can tell that story. But we knew the community was behind us. It has grown 10-fold, 20-fold, whatever. Broken Bow people now, it's just really fun that people are like, oh, Kincaid, yeah, it's where Kinkaider's at, you know what I mean? And so that's super fulfilling too.
It became like a thing you have to do, right? Like an attraction,
right.
in town. So
and it's like I'm super tight with the hotels and super tight with the other restaurants because people come into town, man, they spend the night at the hotel or, Airbnb only houses one group. So a lot of people, especially like our big event days, we'll sell at the hotels on Oktoberfest, And so everybody, it's like a big thing for the town now because we draw in hundreds of people, sometimes into the 1,000 people for this one event out in the middle of nowhere. So there's a certain that place will always have a special place in my heart as we grow. We did feel like to continue to grow the business, distribution wasn't enough. We're the only brewery in the top, I'd say the top 8 that are not distributing outside of the state. We have decided at this point, I never say never, but at this point, we want to make sure Nebraska is synonymous with Kinkaider and Kinkaider is synonymous with Nebraska. I don't know if it's the right move. It may not be.
I think you've already done that, and I know part of the things we've talked about in the past is I could definitely see this thing spreading beyond Nebraska. Have you dug a little deeper into that?
We have. I mean, we've had a million conversations about that, but the question we just keep coming back to is, why do we want to do that? Is it because we want to make more money? Is it because we want just that bigger footprint? What is the goal? And a lot of people don't believe this. Money for us is a scoreboard, and you have to have it, right? It's a necessity. That shows if something works or if something's not working. But I do believe that our group has not had money as the focal point of our business, in the sense that is not the only scoreboard for us. It's a big one. But growing culture, like for me in particular, and I can't speak for the other guys, but I think they would sound off on what I'm saying. Growing culture is a big one. Helping our neighbors is a big one. We try to put a lot of dollars into philanthropy every year, helping make atmosphere and making not only creating our internal culture, but creating being part of like the communities that we're in and making them cooler and more fun. I mean, we have people that will come out, we have a big production facility that has most of the jobs in Broken Bow, 500-600 people, beat Beck and Dickinson. They make like medical parts, huge employer in town. A big part of their recruiting is showing them that we have a brewery in Broken Bow.
That's awesome.
They'll bring these young folks, and these guys have supported us. They're in our spot every week, and they'll bring these young people that are like, okay, I'm out of college. I want to do this job, an engineering job or whatever this job is. Well, BDE, to recruit them, they'll come out and they'll show them the brewery, and they'll show them, hey, we got some live music. We're doing some, volleyball out here. And these young people see that and they go, okay, Broken Bow is ahead of the game. And I believe that. I mean, you compare Broken Bow to other like-sized towns in Nebraska, and some of these towns are not supporting their local business. They're not growing. They're not, their median age is going up, not down. They are dying a slow death, for lack of a better term, where Broken Bow is thriving and businesses are doing well there. And there's this neighborly thing in Broken Bow, really is a rising tide lifts all boats. And all of these guys and gals that have invested in the community want to see their neighbor win. And it's just built on top of built to where Broken Bow, I can't say enough good things about that community, man.
And I agree there. I've been, at least in the area like where we're at on this part of Nebraska, there's so many hidden gems. Yeah. And Ashland comes to my head right away, and there's so many different areas. So yeah, I'm slacking, man. I need to make a trip out there with the family.
Yeah. It's a good spot. You could totally take your whole family out there, and stay and let the kids kind of run wild out in the country a little bit. And I mean, shoot, I don't know how young your youngest ones are, but when our kids were young, me and Kristen would go out there, sit on our patio, look up into the beautiful sandhills, have a beer, have dinner, and the kids are out playing in the volleyball pit or, running around the grass there, whatever. It's a good place. Our vision for that was to not just be another bar or just be a brewery in Broken Bow, but to really try to become that community hub where people come out and they have their wedding receptions and they have their birthday parties and they have their, just like these big points in their life, where our hope is that they look back at Broken Bow, KINKAIDER and Broken Bow, and that was a good part of their life as a community hub. So,
and I love that, Cody. I think so. It's funny. I'm looking at doing a mastermind, like a 2-day mastermind, and I don't know, that's sounding about right there for a little group of guys to
it'd be great. Talk about it'd be great. Yeah, I love that.
So I love that.
Count me in on that one.
Awesome. And I was going to ask you, so you mentioned you have about 120 people on payroll. Yeah. How does one scale that? How does one get to that point?
Yeah, so I feel like it somewhat happened organically, but I will say, so just to kind of explain our management, our ownership structure, Danny worked full time up till about 2 years ago. Dan, like I said, Dan's in great shape, but he's to the place where he wants to just go ride motorcycles and hang out with his wife and do some things. Dan's still very involved. He's still an owner, but his son Jesse actually took over a lot of his duties. Jesse's been fantastic, and then Nate's been, I always call him an active silent partner, because he's always got an opinion on what we're doing. And he's got probably, the most experience in the craft beer world, because he was home brewing for years before we started the brewery. But Barry and I have, we've never really given ourselves titles, but we kind of split this group of what we're doing. So Barry handles everything from production to the retail point, and then I handle everything from retail point to the customer, and that's it in a nutshell. But there's so much crossover. Barry's heavily involved in the Broken Bow restaurant. I'm heavily involved with the guys at the distillery here, and so we've just kind of figured out how to put, I know this sounds dumb, but like just kind of putting people in the right places and trying to see. It's a generic answer, I know, but it's just trying to find people that we can get on our team, that it's more than just a job.
I know you have like great culture too.
Yeah.
How does, to follow up, how does one do a great culture like the one that you have?
I think you can, there's a million different answers and there's a bunch of things that go into it, but I think the long and short of it is you have to give a shit about people and your business. I think you have to do both, and you've got to be able to share the excitement of what you're doing, but also understand that people have a life outside of what you're doing, right? So if people are willing, I always tell my guys, all you owe me is a 2 weeks notice. Like I get so frustrated when I see employers ticked off that somebody didn't give them a month's notice. They don't owe you a month. They owe you 2 weeks. That's really in my mind where it's at. No matter if they're a top manager, a GM, the guy that started yesterday, I think employees owe me 2 weeks as a exchange for giving them a job. Outside of that, I don't think they owe me more than that. The thing about it is I've also seen this in myself and Barry, who him and I run 99% of what's going on here. But we really want to see people succeed, whether they're on our team or not, right? If I can grow a guy, if I can take a guy from this level to this level, and then he can go work for someone else and they can take him from this level to this level, that's a win for me, even though he's not working for me anymore. I want to see that person succeed. Am I disappointed I'm losing somebody good? Sure. Do I try to keep them if I can? Absolutely. But if their mind is made up and they want to go this different path, who am I to be ticked off about that? So I think it's created this culture of people that are open with us. They know that we care about them. They know that we care about, because they've seen me do it. They've seen when somebody that's a vital piece of our operation decides to move on, I'm not pissed. I'm happy for them. I want them to succeed. If they win, I had a small part in their story, and I'm proud of that. And so I think that has been something where they care. They can see that we care about them, that I care about them.
Because, it's almost like you go in there too, knowing that nothing is forever.
Nothing's forever, dude.
Right?
Yeah. So everything ends at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that approach. All right, man. I'd like to call you the Capone of Nebraska. Have you ever heard that before?
The guys that work for me have a running joke that I'm the mayor, but a mayor of the state. I don't know what that means.
Love it. You got my vote. Love it. And it's funny, we started spitting fire right away, Cody. One of the questions I like to ask at the beginning of the show, which, like I said, with all the fire we were talking about, let it go. What's one book that has changed your life?
Oh, geez, dude. That's a tough one. I'll be honest with you, man. Like probably the answer that you want to hear mostly is like a business book or a attitude book or something that changes your behavior. But honestly, I have made part of the reason I feel like we've been successful is because I have an overactive imagination.
Yeah.
So for me, dude, it's like these childhood books that made such an impression on me. I mean, Chronicles of Narnia, Harry Potter's. I know that's a terrible answer, but I'll own that because I do feel like it gave me like this look into a different world, and I love that, and I still love that stuff to this day. I like to dream, I like to explore, I like to imagine that there's people on other planets, and I know I'm kind of going off the rails here, but I think imagination is something that we lose very, very quickly when the world comes crashing down, when we gotta feed kids and we gotta pay rent and we gotta do all these things as an adult that we have to do. I love that I actually tease the guys in my group, since I'm the youngest, they'll call me a pup ass kid, but I say I'm the only one that still has an imagination, So it's fun when we put secret doors in our places and we put these little Easter eggs and these things. So some of those childhood books to this day still have an impact on me, and I think it helped develop this imagination and this thing that we can create anything, and I like to create those experiences and have people come into them. I would say from the business side of things, mentors have been huge for me. I've had some fantastic ones. I follow a lot of these guys, Gary Vee and Grant Cardone, and some of these guys that are super influential. I don't believe everything that they say. I sometimes like, that's bullshit. But I think that there's some great pieces that you can take out of that. One of the books that a lot of people give credit to that actually it was negative for me is the How to Win Friends and Influence People. And
man,
I know.
Let's go. I want to hear about this.
You probably love that book.
I have it right behind
dude,
you.
And here's the thing, and I read that one, and it seemed a bit manipulative to me. And so I didn't have the great experience. Like my brother was like, "Oh, you got to read this book," and it just felt a little manipulative to me. In that I want authentic experiences. Sorry, and real personalities and real emotions. I think authenticity is the most important currency today because there's so much fake. And so I want to make sure when I'm talking to people, when I'm talking to my staff, because it's easy for me to be fake too. I can put on this front that most people would respond positively to, but I don't always want. I want to make sure it's authentic, and that's something that just kind of recirculates as I'm going through this constant search for self-awareness. That's something that I think people should. I think it's something that will rise to the top no matter what.
So, I like that, man. Yeah. That's a great answer. Actually, what I like about it is that you're going against like the norm, and I think your brand itself, you've done that the whole time.
Yeah.
Even like the beers that you come up with, the art that you come up with. And since we're on the subject with branding, what are some tips that you have for somebody that wants to learn something about branding?
Sure. To me, you have to connect with people on a mental level, but an emotional level. And how do you do that? To me, I know there's a million different ways to brand. There's shock value branding. There's different ways that you can get people's attention. For us, we took the path of storytelling. That's a big one. I feel like I didn't even realize how big of a path in marketing that was until we started doing it. But I knew that people love to tell stories, right? And if you have a great experience somewhere and you can tell a story that's attached, man, I tried this beer and it's all tied back to Nebraska history and folklore and tales. And they get to tell that story. Oh, this happened right in this spot. People respond to that. And so I took that and we ran with it, and it's worked. I'm not saying it's worked every time, but it's worked most of the time. And I think if people can, if the story doesn't get too convoluted and it's something that people can grasp easily and quickly, you'll get them. And you know, you have to sell the product to them, whether it's a beer or anything else. You have to sell it to them before they try it, right? Most of the time there's sampling events, things like that. But I've got a ton of competition on the grocery store shelf. How do I get their attention? First, I got to get the image, and then I got to give them. I'm a big fan of Easter eggs. I like when we do build outs of our spaces, I hide things within the space that people may not find for months, years down the road. And I love that. So like, what, for an example, one of the things that we're doing right now, this was not my idea, but I loved it, and we're implementing it at our distillery. We've got our main guy, Mo is his name, and he's kind of a traveling showman, salesman. We kind of did it around the Dust Bowl of the 1930s, Nebraska, Kansas, when there was nothing to do here except when these shows came through on the single buggy and horse, and they threw the curtains open and they did these shows. That's what this guy represents. And so we took him, and woodworker, does beautiful stuff. He made these little placards with like whiskey and distillery and facts about our company, and we're hiding them all over the distillery.
That's
so as
awesome.
people kind of why I love stuff. Like, I love what I see. You know, who the king of that is, like Disney, right? Like, you go to Disney and you look down and there's a shrub that's in the shape of Mickey Mouse, and you're like, oh shoot, man, they didn't have to do that. It wouldn't have really mattered if they didn't do that. But I love that. And so when I see that, I want to say, okay, how do we apply that in our business? So I try to do that as much as possible too. There's some that I want to smack them on the face with it, but there's other ones that I want them to, when they dig deeper with us and they learn more about us and they get on our website and they dig a little bit, I want them to find things like that, because I think, you know, it's kind of the mark of a classic, right? To find that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And right now, Cody, you've taken where you come from, we'll call it small town, to where you're at now, just doing these amazing things. What is some wisdom that you could share with our listeners that you've learned along the way from now until then? Or from then until now?
Yeah, from then until now. What have I learned? A big one for me is if you're growing business, obviously, you know, I talked about money being a scoreboard. You also have to have money to get started. A big one for me was when I made the realization that the banks need us more than we need them. That was a big one.
Man, that's I'm still trying to think about that one. That's awesome. That's a big one.
If they don't have us, they don't exist, right?
Yeah.
And so as a younger man, banks were very intimidating to me. You just got to build the relationships. You gotta show them that you're willing to do whatever it takes to make something successful. Well, there's an old boy in Broken Bow that gave me a quote one time. He says he's a hog farmer. Great guy. He goes, Cody, if you owe the bank $1 million, they got you by the nuts. But if you owe them $50 million, you got them by the nuts. He said they want you to be successful more than you need to be successful. So
man, that's a good one. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was how important, because it sounds like you were able to leverage as much as you could.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've kind of done that. How important is that for somebody that wants to get started?
You know, you gotta figure out how to put a little bit of money away, or at least build enough personal equity to be able to have a little bit of starter cash, right? But a lot of people think that because we had businesses or whatever before we started Kinkaider that we all dumped a bunch of money into it. We really didn't. So I'll be super. I really normally don't talk about this, but just because of kind of what the nature of this is. So Barry and I
here first.
Yeah, right. So Barry and I, there's 4 of us. Barry and I each put in $15,000. Nate and Dan each put in $7,500 because they were bringing some beer knowledge to the table that Barry and I did not have at that time. So the 4 of us guys, we put in $45,000 and to build Kinkaider. We have never put in another dollar since. It's all been given that we all have worked side jobs and we figured out how to take all the money for like the first 5 years and reinvest it back into Kinkaider. That's a big part of the reason that we've grown so quickly.
I love that, Cody, that you mentioned the other ones brought knowledge because I feel like there's this big issue between like people thinking with partnerships, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And what are some tips you could give us about partnerships?
Dude, on paper, the 4 of us guys should not work. We all were kind of alphas in our own right. We were the boss in our, in our own places, in our own corners, in our own industries. It shouldn't probably work, but I think that there is such a healthy respect of what each one of us brings to the table. So also on paper, if you put the 4 of us on a spectrum and you put our skill sets and you lined up our skill sets, almost none of those skill sets crossover. It's kind of crazy. Like what Barry's good at is what I'm not good at. What I'm good at is what Barry's not good at. Same with Dan and Nate. And so really and we've had people offer, hey, how can I buy in? How can I do something with you? And I always take that as a super big compliment. But really, I don't ever just want a money partner. And I'm glad we made this decision early. I don't want just a money partner. I get that sometimes that is part of it. But for me, to me, there's things worth more than money. And to me, the knowledge and the investment in time and the investment in ideas, to me is almost stronger than bringing monetary currency to the table, because at the end of the day, once you figure out how to work with banks and do different things, money is, I hate to say this, but money can be easy to get. Ideas and hard work and time are harder to get, in my opinion. So we unknowing to us at the time, we were all bringing money plus, right? We were bringing some money, but we were bringing our expertise, our skill set, our experience, our kind of that checklist of things that we are good at to the table. And ultimately, that's what's helped us be successful.
Yeah, and I love that answer, Cody. It makes me think of something that I kind of live by, where like people think, oh yeah, I'll just throw money in, but it's like when it's 9 p.m. and you're sitting at home with the wife watching a movie and you have to leave to go do something, that's where I want to see a partner. Yeah. Right. Like that. Are you going to go with me at that time?
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I love that answer. Love it.
Thanks, man.
And then just so what's happiness to Cody?
Happiness to me is seeing my wife and my kids succeed. I'm really excited about being a dad and growing my kids to think and look at the world differently than most people do. I put myself in their position, and their dad, most people's dad is going and punching the clock and doing this, and they're seeing me make up stories about aliens and tying it to a beer and selling that beer and bringing a comic book artist in from LA to go on tour with us, along with 2 actors that have masks on that look like these aliens. It's like, am I screwing up my kids here?
Love it, man. No.
And so they see me do things like that. And I do like the people that they're becoming, and I can see they're 12 and 8, but they're looking at the world differently, you know, like even Livy, when she was, I like telling this story, but she was probably 6. And it was when we lived in Broken Bow, and we're driving past the grocery store that we owned at the time, the neighborhood grocery store. And she goes, Dad, parking lot looks pretty full. Lots of customers in there. She's 6, bro.
That's awesome.
And I'm like,
wow.
I love that. And it's like most 6-year-olds are like, they have no idea what's going on. And she's paying attention to how many customers we have in the park, because she knows that's important to me, and I'm looking at that, right? And so I like seeing where my kids are going and I'm excited what they're going to do. I like being a part of that. That's a big part of my happiness. My relationship, me and my wife have been together for 18 years. She was 20 and I was 21 when we met. She has went through every bump in the road and every time where, you know, I made bad choices within our business, and she's seen the ups and she's seen the downs, and man, she has been solid with me. And one of the things that I guess this is one of my biggest pieces of advice to people, is if your home relationships aren't good, it is going to poison the well in your business. And I want my partners to have good relationships with their wives and their kids. And I want my employees to have good relationships with their wives and their kids, or whoever, you know, husbands, wives. If you're not solid at home, you're not going to be as good at work. No matter how hard you work, no matter how many hours you put in. This has been a tough lesson for me, though, because I think about my business every waking moment. It's life and death for me. And I think about it when I wake up, and when I think about it when I go to, and I think about, and I have to figure out, okay, I got to shut this well off for an hour, 2 hours, have dinner with my family, play a game. And if I do that, my next day is better. If I don't do that, I can feel it, bro. I can feel it,
man.
And so that's something where my wife, and I appreciate her too, because she's willing to say, slow your roll, bro, you know, because she loves me. And you know,
love it, man.
Yeah,
love it. No, and that's so true. It's funny because as a, you know, a lot of my younger friends, you know, when we were younger, like, they thought like having multiple women was a thing, and it's like, no, dude, like that, you're not being focused, right?
Right.
Like, anyways, totally whole other subject, but it goes with it.
Sure.
And you're 90 years old right now, Cody. What is the most thing that you're proud of right now?
Oh man, if my kids are doing good, God willing, my kids, you know, I hope to leave something that can continue to give employment or happiness or residuals for folks that you know, outside of my circle too, whether it's you know, packaging this all up and selling it someday, which I have no plans to do it anytime soon, or just passing it off to the next generation. If it's something that can outlast me, that's huge too. That's not my only goal, but that would be fulfilling to me at the end of my life. You know, if I make it to 90, we'll see.
Love it. Great answer. And as much as I hate to, we have to wrap it up, I guess. Obviously, I know you got your things going on. Once again, thanks for making the trip. I really appreciate it. At the end, we ask the same questions and to every guest for wisdom. So the first question that I have, I wrote a book called The Power of Being Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What is one way that you got uncomfortable that paid off? And I mean, there's a ton of ways that, as you could hear with your story, but what comes to your mind right away?
So when I decided, probably the most uncomfortable I've been in my life is when I decided to jump in on this brewery with these guys, and we had about $300 in the bank account, and we were definitely paycheck to paycheck, And I talked my wife into going out and taking a $15,000 loan in order to invest in this business.
Man.
And I think my interest rate on that was like 12 to 13% on that loan, unsecured loan. And it was dumb and I was uncomfortable, but it did pay off. I'm not telling you to go max out your credit cards and do that, but it is something where I was uncomfortable. The other thing that I think has really helped me when I was uncomfortable is figuring out public speaking. That was a big one for me. I know you do a little bit of that too. And it's something that I actually really enjoy, especially if I know the subject matter. I like talking to groups of people, and that once I kind of got over the hump of looking stupid or being scared or whatever that is, that was a big one to me. You have to be able to communicate in this world. You have, and now more than ever, you got to be able to bridge gaps because we're not going to all believe the same, and that's okay, but we got to still be able to come together, have a conversation, live in the same community, and build each other up. And so that was a big one for me too, is going outside of my normal circles and forcing myself to do that to the place where I started actually enjoying it. So,
man, wow. And then if you were to look at your younger self right now, what would be for wisdom, some kind of advice you would give yourself?
Yeah, I would say, I would say find the person that you want to be and go work for them for free until they're willing to hire you. I think that's the best thing. I used to be pretty anti-college. I still somewhat am. I'll be honest with you, because I still somewhat, I want to make sure that I'm open because, right, I want my doctor to have gone to college, right? There's certain jobs that I think you have to go to college for, but I do think that if we change this perception that college is the only path, I think it's going to, right now, the not to go down on this road too much, but the return on investment in college is not there. I don't think anybody can prove it to me with most career paths, right? If you go, you would be better off literally working for somebody that you want to be for 4 years. You'd be money ahead rather than having mountains and mountains of debt. How do we get to the place where we give this person a $20,000 loan to go start a business rather than hundreds of thousands with a degree they can't use? And so that's a big one for me, is don't think there's just one path to success. There's a million paths to success. College is not the only one. There's a lot of successful people, a lot of my friends that are successful that have gone to college. I also have a lot of friends that have never gone to college that were actually bad at school that are also very successful. I went to 1 semester at community college, knew it wasn't for me. So to me is don't just take that norm that it's been for 50 years, 100 years, that you have to go down that path, because there's always another way.
I love that. I love it. And to kind of add on to that, Cody, what are you telling your kids about college and just overall after? Because I know for me, I tell them, if you don't want to go to college, that's fine, but you got to bring me a plan. And there has to be some real estate investing in there as well. Right. So, and those are kind of the rules that I made up, but I'm also okay with them not going to college. So what does Cody tell?
So my kids can do 2 paths right now. I'm not ruling out college for them, but they do have to bring me a plan to, if they're going to go to school, not if they're not going to school. Why are you going? What are you hoping to gain out of this? Right. Henry, my boy, he's shown some early signs of being mechanical, which I am not. So I want to try to figure out how I can foster that within him. Right now, I would talk him into being an electrician, because those guys, honestly, you can't even find them, and
you send him my way for my flips and
right. So then my daughter has shown, I've talked about a business, because I truly believe that the only way you can get ahead now, I mean, when our parents were kids, you could work a job and you could get ahead. You can't really do that anymore. I've got buddies that are making a lot of money every year, 6 figures plus, that are still struggling getting ahead. So how do you get ahead? You got to figure out how to make money when you're not working. And the only way to do that, the path that I know, is some sort of a business, right? And so that's something that I'm hoping my kids take that path. If my kids come to me and say, Dad, I'm going to go to college and here's the reasons why, A, B, C, X, Y, Z, I'm not going to tell them no, but I am going to ask those questions because I think a lot of folks think they're going to go to college, get this degree, and get this great job, and it's not happening anymore. It used to. Pre 1990s ish, it was working. The last 20 years, it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked, and that's a blanket statement, but the ROI is not there like it used to be. So I really want to make sure my kids are set up for a path of success, whether that's real estate on the side or starting their own business or whatever that looks like. You got to figure out how to make a buck when you're asleep, and that's a big one.
You know, I in these times, I think you're better off buying a car that Uber pays for and you're driving around. I mean, it's the reality that we're in. Yeah. So love it. And then if there were 3 steps to success, Cody, and if you do these 3 things, you're not going to fail, you're going to be successful. What are the 3 things?
I mean, work hard is the big one, right? Work when nobody else is working, you know, and that's kind of ties into that first one. Don't get caught up in material things, man. Stop eating out. And I'm saying this to myself as much as anybody. Don't get caught up in material things because there's going to always be somebody that has more than you. Drive the crappy car until it can buy your new truck, but use the old iPhone until you know what I mean? Get to the place where you're okay with not having the best. And I'm saying this to myself too. So I think that would be the second one, and then value the people around you, not just your employees, not your boss, not your family, your friends, man. If you put value into those folks, it's going to come back tenfold, man. And so I think that's a big one for me too.
I love that. And frugality, that's I'd be a liar if I didn't say that that's what got me to where I'm at and where I'm heading. And even the decisions that I'm making now, I'm like, am I ready? Right. Even though you built it to that point. So I love that. That was a big answer there. And then if you were to write a book, Cody, what would be the theme and title of it?
Oh man. That's a tough one. Theme and title of the book.
With your imagination, man, you probably have a few.
Honestly, I think I could fill a book about, and I know I've said this a few times in this interview, but authenticity matters is what it would be called. And I think this next generation, and when I say next generation, I'm talking 30 and under. I think I got my gripes with that group. Don't get me wrong. Like, work ethic and there's different things. But the thing that they have right is that they can sniff out a fake. Boom. Like that. Way more than my parents could. Right. 30 and under can sniff out a fake. And I think to be successful going forward, you're going to have to be authentic with people and in your conversations and your business dealings and your storytellings, whatever that is, because they want the real thing. They don't want the fake thing. So
I love it, man. And since I know you do some coaching and stuff, and I got some coaching stuff going on that I'm doing, and I always preach that it's like just be yourself with social media and all that. Like it's so easy to put a stunt, and there's a lot of people that shoot themselves in the foot because the truth always comes out.
It does. It does, bro. Yep.
So absolutely. Love it. And where can people find you, Cody, on social media? Talking about social media.
Yeah. So personally, I'm just on Facebook and Instagram. Our spots, Broken Bow, Grand Island, Lincoln, Omaha, and then we have our distillery, Sideshow Spirits. So go to KINKAIDERBREWING.com, SideshowSpirits.com is where our 2 businesses are. We just opened, we didn't even get to talk about this, but we just opened our new German beer house in the Haymarket. Come check us out there. Got a lot of things going, a lot of projects in the works, but follow us on Facebook and Instagram mostly. So,
man, love it, Cody. And I want to thank you, man. This has been awesome. A lot of wisdom that you shared, and every conversation I have with you, it's always amazing. So can't wait till we have a few more beers here soon. Bro. So maybe at the new German spot. That sounds amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So thank you for coming by, man.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody out there listening, make sure you guys, anywhere you're listening, whether it's Spotify or YouTube, wherever, screenshot where you're listening and tag me and Cody, and we're gonna reshare it. Also, the @ $1 Million Hustle Pod. Tag us, we're gonna share it so we could all get the word out there. So thank you, and we'll see you on the next one. Vámonos.
Keep it going, you gotta trust the process. You who you hang with, and you hanging out with bosses. To hang with us, you gotta be stable, and it's a must to bring something to the table.